Are you? Right, thank you. Right, thank you. My name's Eric. Don't live far away. I live at Church Warsop. So this really is, although I'm in a different county, a different country, it's not far away. It's still local history to me. This is. Right. Today's talk on Munitions Factory. We all know about the area's got a lot of history in World War II. You've got Cookney Norton camps, you had a prisoner of war camp at Langwith just down the road. There's all sorts of things, but what about World War I? We're probably aware of Clipston Camp in World War I. That were a massive place, massive help to World War troops and that, but there were a lot more going off, and one thing which a lot of folks don't know about is right here in Langwith, the Munitions Factory. Because it's everybody who had anything to do with it had to sign Official Secrets Act. It was World War I a long time ago. It's been knocked down. There's no trace whatsoever of it now. So nobody knows nothing about it. You know, when people signed Official Secrets Act in that day and age, they took notice of it. They never spoke about it, and a lot of folks have never ever spoke about it. But I mean, you think today though, if some kids have to sign Official Secrets Act, they'll go straight home and it'll be on Facebook.
Where was it in relation to this building then? Whereabouts in the village was it?
Just across, basically across road, but it'll all come up in a minute. It's all underneath the tip now. There's no trace of it whatsoever. Well, there's little tiny bits, but basically there's no trace of it. I mean, it was just called His Majesty's Factory, Langwith. I mean, it was His Majesty because I think, was it George the Fifth or Sixth who was king in World War I? And when you talk about Munitions Factory, when you talk about munitions, you automatically think of bombs, bullets, but this is something totally different. This was a large factory producing just one product, a chemical called ammonium perchlorate, and this was used in mines in sea mines in World War I. And it wasn't the explosive, it was what they called an accelerant, which made the explosive a bigger bang, basically. If you think of the IRA, when they were making bombs, they only had a little bit of Semtex, but they put it in a van full of fertiliser, ammonium nitrate, and that was the accelerant. It made it 100 times bigger bang, just for a small amount of explosives. Sorry?
Why did they need the bang?
Well, when I say bang, I just mean a colloquial word for an explosion. Like, it just made a bigger explosion and sort of did more damage. Right. And why a lot of folks don't know anything about this or not much about it is because it was actually no papers was released under the 90-year rule until 2008. So you couldn't actually go to National Archives and find out anything about it until 2008. So again, up to that point, everybody was kept stum, and little bits of rumours about it. Oh, there used to be a munitions factory over there, did they? Ah, yeah. No, but nobody knew anything about it. So it all started when the war first started. Everybody said, "Oh, it'll be over by Christmas." But that wasn't the case. It went on for a long time. And the Germans attacked several times, but they was always beaten back. So they come up with another strategy of, we were an island race, so we needed supplies from other countries, which meant shipping. So they decided to attack a supply line. And it was very successful. They destroyed 1 in 4 ships supplying England. So something had to be done about that. So it decided that we had to sort of mine the area, try and get stop U-boats destroying our shipping. The only problem with that was the ammonium perchlorate, which was needed to make the mines, was only produced in France and Sweden. France needed their own, and Sweden was a neutral country, and they wasn't allowed to supply us. But with top secret negotiations, an agreement was finally agreed that they would teach us how to do it. So again, although that was illegal under war regulations, we did sneak some men into Sweden to be taught how to manufacture this stuff, and not just manufacture it, we had to build all the infrastructure as well. We'd got nothing to build it in. So a chief engineer was chosen, Mr. George C. Wiles, and he went over to Sweden and learnt all about it. That's a story in its own, because with all Europe at war, he had to sneak in and out different countries, going back doors. Then when he got there, he got to learn all this stuff, then come back again. And he was nearly caught several times. So this could have been end of this before it started. But why build one in Langwith? Langwith Colliery. I mean, there was, that's, where are we now? We're down there somewhere, aren't we, on the main Worley Road, is it? But there were several built in the country of these plants, these ammonium perchlorate plants, but it was picking the locations. But like I say, why was Langwith picked as one at locations? So, well, Langwith Pit opened in 1878, and it mined the top hard seam. And the top hard seam had coal which was a very high calorific value, which made it saleable. But the only problem with that is it produced a lot of slag, the very small stuff, which wasn't saleable at that time. I mean, now, in the current age, the power stations, well, they've shut up power stations down now, haven't they? But they all used to be powered with slag. That's what the modern power stations, that's all they used. But in the olden days, well, there was no big power stations as such, so all the small stuff was no good. So it just took up to the tip and dumped on tip. The only problem with that, or one of the problems with that is, with it being slag, when it got compressed, it spontaneously combusted and all the tips were on fire. And not just Langwith, that happened with a lot of, most at collieries, because none of this small stuff from any at collieries was sold. Although with the steam Langwith was working, that was, it produced a unusually large amount of the small stuff. So most of the tips was actually coal, which was later in 1970s, 80s, it was remined. The coal, the tips was rewashed and all that small stuff recovered. And in some places, we got as much as 30% coal out of it. Trying to solve this problem, one of the things they come up with, they thought, well, what else can we use this slag for? So they got the thinking caps on, and they built what they called that's Langwith Pit on there. That's the main railway line as it goes through now. The Robin Hood line. The station, Worleythorne Station, is about there. So that was Langwith Colliery, but on this side of the railway line, if you come over onto Poulter Country Park now, you've got, if you come over the bridge from the station, on your left-hand side, there's a bit of a copse. Inside that copse, that's the area where that was. And if you look in there, you can still find some bricks and that from the old buildings. So that was called Langwith Byproducts Company. It was, although it was only owned by the Sheepbridge Company, which owned the colliery, it was a separate entity. So say they got the heads together, and that byproduct plant, So produced from this slag ammonium sulfate, of which they produced 1,694 tonnes of it, which made tar. Ammonium sulfate 1,694 tonnes and 879 tonnes of tar in 1914. So basically, I mean, that seems to be going off a track from munitions factory, but basically that is why they picked this spot for a munitions factory to make this ammonium perchlorate, because the ammonium sulfate that this produced for fertilisers was the main ingredient for making ammonium perchlorate, if that makes sense. Also, by producing this ammonium sulfate, this plant produced an enormous amount of waste gas. Now this was planned to power all the village and the pit with it, but that never materialised. It was just burnt off in big vessels, similar to what you see at North Sea, you know, all these flames, that's just waste gas being burnt. They were just burning it off. It was just so noxious to the surrounding areas. But say that was two of the reasons: the production of ammonium sulfate and the waste gas, because the waste gas was needed to power the turbines which were going to make this ammonium perchlorate. And the other reason was it had got two main railway lines which for infrastructure coupled this colliery to the rest of the country. You've got the LNER, which was the Great Central, which began life as the Lancashire, Derbyshire and East Coast Railway. And then that was the Midland Railway, which is now your Robin Hood line. But both of them, this one supplied the colliery that way, and then that one come in that way. So after they decided to build the ammonium perchlorate plant here, the Earl of Bathurst, who lived at Langwith Lodge, he was approached and he sold the land. And although he left Langwith Lodge, he sold Langwith Lodge in 1824. But by a bit of foresight, he kept hold of all the land in the area. He just sold the lodge because he realised there was a lot of coal underground. So he kept hold of the land to licence the mining rights. So he actually owned that land at the time. So they bought 27 acres. That's the colliery is this side. The byproduct plant was the other side. That's a railway coming through there. That's a byproduct, and that's the proposed factory they're going to build, the other side of it. But again, because it was going to be top secret, it's in wartime. So they didn't want anybody to know about it. So the government actually gave the byproduct plant £1,145 to buy that land off the Earl of Bathurst. So they bought it under the heading of the helping the byproduct plant produce more material to help the war, but it wasn't. It was for another purpose to help the war, but where they were did it that way so nobody'd find out. Sorry about this.
This Earl of Bathurst, then, what had he got to do with this area? I mean, how did he get to
the Earl of Bathurst was from Cirencester. Oh, right. They from down that area. But as with a lot of other places, during the Civil War and after that, when they fought for the king gave different earls and that different bits of land, and he gave the Earl of Bathurst places all over the country, and this area was one of them. So even though he had nothing to do with it, the king said, at the time, you have that bit there. So that's how his family come, to be in this, although they had nothing to do with it, basically. So the byproduct plant then bought that land, and then work started in earnest, and then of building the new plant. It started off, I don't know if you can see this from here. It's been a bit like, it's a Google Earth image, but it's, if you can see, that's the road going through Langwith. That's a gate hotel. We are about here somewhere now. The red bit was the old colliery. That bit there was the byproduct plant. So that red line is the railway going through. That's the old Lancashire and East Coast Railway, which is again under the tip now. There's no trace of that. Although there is parts on that side of Langwith, which is the archaeology way. That's part. And that blue line there, that is the area of the munitions factory. So it's all so they started work in 1915 with to build 9 massive gas turbines, and this is where the waste gas from the byproduct plant come in, which was powering these turbines to make the electric to run the munitions factory. Because changing the ammonium sulfate into ammonium perchlorate required vast amounts of electricity, and that's why there was 9 turbines like that. And that started in November 1915. 3 months later, that was up and running. You know, you'd never do that in this day and age, Dad. Nowadays. And again, for the rest of there's not actually a lot of photos of the completed plant, but there is a lot of photos of the construction of the plant, because Winston Churchill at the time, he was the War Minister, and he wanted a weekly update. So they took many photos and sent them down to Churchill just to show how they was going on. So now there's when you see it was actually a huge place, 27 acres, 6 stories high. You know, well, again, that was a big problem with the workers, because all the men was either working down the mine or were at war. So again, they had to enlist the army to come and do it, and a lot of women.
They've all got black hats on there, they know hard hats.
So I say there's plenty of photos of the construction. I mean, again, but another problem they wrote, because the government was building this, it was officially owned by the byproduct company, but that had to keep running. So there was but these disrupted that a lot. So there was a lot of animosity between the two companies and workers. So although that delayed it a little bit, it wasn't a lot, but there was a lot of arguments and to and fro-in. You know, I say there were many. A list of the buildings there was 2 6-story tower blocks where the main processes took place, a huge water reservoir, the power plant which housed 9 gas turbines, packing rooms, grinding rooms, water softeners, loading stations, workshops, laboratories, and many other different, canteens, all sorts of over 27 acres. And again, that was up and running, all the lot from when it first started in 15 months. You know, it's hard to believe that something like that could be built in that sort of time today.
I assume that's the day, so they're doing it through the winter.
Yeah, they were doing it. It was non-stop, from start to finish. And the only that's one at 6-story building. So there were 2 of them, 2 6-story buildings, and you won't believe it now. There's absolutely nothing there whatsoever. That Is it on Worley, just under the viaduct? That is the only remaining piece of the factory left. Which is that, and that was the pump house which pumped the water from the River Poulter up to the big tank on top at factory. I mean, I think it's a private garage now, isn't it? That, you know, I think didn't Dave Horner used to put his car in it, who lived on the corner of Devonshire Drive one time. But it always makes me wonder. A place like that needed a vast amount of water, as did the colliery. And then there was the byproduct one. I mean, how did they get? It surprised me how they got all that water from River Poulter. And although it was pretty fast running river, to me they don't see much volume there. You know, whether it was there was more water in it at the time, I don't know. So as well as the factory, a small estate was built for the workers, which was Langwith Drive and Boundary Close area, with a few shops on the main road in Pink. They was all built for the workers of the factory. And although, when I say workers at factory, that was mainly management, because again, most of your male workers was at war or down the pits. They'd already got houses. So 90% of the workers was female. But there wasn't enough from this area, so they shipped them in from all over the place. And with having two railways coming in, they could come from anywhere. And both the platforms was right at side, so literally every day, hundreds of workers coming from all over the county or even further. So the factory eventually started in October 1916. Saying it only took 14 months to build the entire factory. These are some of the workers. You know, come. This one, I've got no names on that one. And the clothes they were dressed in, it were calico, which was a material which didn't have, you know, which protected you from the hazardous chemicals and that what you were using. That one has got a name, if you can see, Ada Bills. That's some tinsmiths and welders. And another large group of workers. And like I say, most of them are women. I mean, the actual process, it's the actual process itself to make this material started with rock salt, and this rock salt was taken to one of these 6-storey buildings which was full of big baths of water. They put the rock salt in it, and that's where the vast amounts of electricity come from. They had to bombard these baths of rock salt with electricity, and that, you might get mixed up with stuff, it turned into a chemical called perchloric acid. But like I say, huge amounts of electricity was needed. But once it was changed into this perchloric acid, it was then all pumped over to the other tower block, where the ammonium sulfate, which the byproduct company was making, was added to it, and with another process, with big baths and a vast amount of electricity, this was then transformed into the ammonium perchlorate, which was needed for the mines. So it seems a long-winded, but it sometimes makes you wonder who suddenly decided, oh, let's mix a bit of rock salt with water. Yeah. No, it's but what they call an accelerant. They've got the TNT, which was the explosives, which was manufactured in Britain, but TNT on its own wasn't strong enough to make a big blast, to do much damage. So it was quite an high percentage. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but say it was something like a kilogram of TNT added to maybe 100 kilogram of accelerant. You know, so it was, they might not be exact figures, but it was something in, you know, that area. It was, so you didn't need much TNT to make a big blast with this other stuff added to it. So this also produced another byproduct, which was sodium sulfate, but that was used in the glass industries that make glass. So then they sold that to the glass industry. So there's a big circle going on around. When the ammonium perchlorate left them baths, it was still nearly liquid. So they had to send it to be dried into solids, into big drying kilns, and then when it was dried, it was solid, so they had to grind it down. So it was sent into the grinding and milling room, where it became a fine white powder, and again packed into calico bags to make it safe for travelling.
Was that the stuff that turned people yellow, or was that a different?
I'm not sure on that one. I mean, they were, although that particular picture, that one isn't at Langwith, that's at Barnbow at Leeds, but it's exactly the same. And again, when you entered the factory, you had similar sort of thing as you did with pits, your pit checks, one in, one out. So when it was sent to the grinding rooms and the milling rooms and packed into these sacks, it was then, this was a loading bay. This is at Langwith, this one. This is a loading bay at Langwith, where it was loaded onto the wagons. And it was mainly transported to a factory in South Wales, but a bit went to Chilwell at Nottingham to make a few bombs there. But most of the mines were actually made in South Wales.
Seems strange though, transporting all that way when you've got all new materials here, isn't it?
I suppose it's where, you know, like I say, they had the access to the basic products that made and there was, I think there was 14 of these factories throughout the country. So it was just basically where it was easiest to locate to source the products to make it. And putting it on wagons, it's not really all that much trouble to send it from here to South Wales, especially in them days when they had a more efficient railway system. I mean, if you sent something to South Wales nowadays, you couldn't guarantee it'd get there. Again, although production started in October 1916, both processes had problems, and they didn't sort them out for a couple of years. And they didn't actually sort the problems out till July 1917, which was only a year to end at war, when they got up to full production. And they was expecting 50 tonnes a week, but when it got up to full production in July, they was actually producing 60 tonne a week. But in all this time, they only produced 2,173 tonnes of ammonium perchlorate, which I think for all this trouble, you know, it wasn't a lot. That one is a photo of them building the grinding house and the milling area there. And this product was just an accelerant, so it was pretty stable. It wasn't easily ignited, but they did have 2 explosions here, which killed a total of 6 people. I mean, and both of them occurring in the grinding house. Again, the first explosion was on 20th of November 1917, and a fire started killing 1 woman aged 23 and 2 men aged 53 and 68. This is thought to have been, well, there were 2 theories on this one. One was a loose nut in one of the grinding machines, which then caused sparks and friction and ignited the. Or later on one of the dead men, they found some cigarettes and a lighter in his pocket, which, I mean, if they found the cigarettes and lighter, it doesn't mean he was actually smoking, but it could have been a cause of it. But so it was one of them two reasons on that one. The second explosion on 20th of March 1918, of the 6 girls working there, 3 of them was killed. Dorothy Brown, Elsie Mae Garrett and Ethel Gorrell. That's Dorothy Brown.
Was there any compensation paid out?
A little bit, but nothing really.
No, I was thinking about the cigarettes and that. They could have probably been planted something.
They could have been. You never know, do you? So there is still, although the official papers were supposed to have been released in 2008, there is still some which are classified as top secret, and there's still another 25 years before they can access them. So who knows what they're going to say? I don't think I will. So if you could see the number 1, that was Dorothy Brown, who was killed. Number 2, Elsie Mae Garrett. Number 3, Ethel Gorrell. And number 4, Winnie Pegg, had a badly injured leg. The second fire on that, no reason could be found. They never come up with a reason for that one. Nothing ever happened. Again, that's one that survived at Minnie Brazier. I don't know if you recognise any of these names or whether they're from. I mean, all deceased, they was buried with full military honours because they were officially classed as war workers or soldiers, but they was buried in unmarked graves at the time. Now that's only just recent, isn't it? You know, last 10 years, that's all been sorted out. And also this memorial in Poulter Country Park, which is approximately on the spot of the factory. And again, that's a double memorial, one for World War I factory deaths and one for a World War II plane crash. And again, that's a pretty recent one as well. When war came to an end in November 11th, 1918, production was gradually run down and eventually ceased in 1919. By end of 1920, it was gone with only a few workers working there. The factory was still open, but there's something strange going off in it. You know, nobody found out what was going off at it, but the local parish council records or minutes of meetings show discussions that the factory may have been suspected of secretly disposing of other chemicals used in the war, surplus chemicals. Because in 1922, for example, there was 10,000 gas cylinders on site, and there was, at night time, there's reports, again in parish council records, of noxious smells during the night, and many unexplained illnesses at the time. So although nothing was ever proven, nothing was ever said, whether this will come out when the new records are released, I don't know. But nothing, you know, you can guess, you got some idea, but nothing was ever proven. After that episode, when they eventually got rid of that, in 1922, they decided to sell off all the assets, everything what was there. But a lot of them didn't sell. I mean, who would want stuff at me? Ammonium perchlorate, you know, you don't use that very often in your back garden, do you? So a lot of things didn't sell very well. But the manager at the time, a Captain Johnson, took it on himself to sell them for himself. So, so after a while, they'd sold quite a lot of goods, privately, but he was found out, and he was sentenced to 12 months hard labour. But at that time as well, hard labour was hard labour. It wasn't just being sent to prison. It was, you really regretted it even though it was 12 months.
So really then, from start to finish, it took 1917, you said that...
Yeah, 1917 and basically to 1919 when production stopped. It was only 2 years in total.
It's nothing, is it, for the size of it?
In September 1921, the company put all the buildings up for sale, hoping to sell it to some engineering company, manufacturing company, but that never materialised either. So in 1927, the Sheep Bridge Coal and Iron Company, who owned the colliery, bought it, demolished it, and it became part at tip. Then, just the site totally buried. But unfortunately, again, that's not the end of the tragedies. During the demolition, there were a 10-year-old child of Scott Street, Sidney Charlesworth of Scott Street, was taking the workmen some tea, and after he took the tea and the snap and that, he decided to climb up to the top story looking for pigeons. So, but unfortunately, he slipped and fell 78 foot, and that was that. So basically, that's a brief history. There is a lot more, although there's not a lot of information about, that's only a bit of it. So hopefully it gives some sort of insight into what the factory was for. Ammonium perchlorate, again, is still manufactured today, but only in one place in the world, and that's in Utah. And to give some monetary comparisons, the girls who come to work here, there was no shortage of people wanting to work here because the wages were £3 a week, which was double and treble anywhere else. So there was no shortage of work. That would equate now to about £1,000 a week. The manager, he was on £600 per annum. That would now be £150,000. The land cost £1,145. That again would be £150,000 now. That would cost for the land, the 27 acres. The building cost, the total building cost from start to finish, was £692,000. That today would be 90 million to build that today. The approximate total cost of the building and running of the plant and making the chemical was £2.5 million. But it only produced 2,178 tonnes, which worked out at £1,150 a tonne at that time, which equates now to £150,000 a tonne. It cost to make this material. Today's, so £150,000 equivalent cost, today's cost in Utah would be £4,500. Nothing. Well, I hope that's thrown a bit of light onto it, and I hope if nobody knew it existed, it shows the. But I think right. So, thank you.